Hi, thank you for joining us today at Oklahoma Central. We'll be starting our webinar, Steps to Financial Freedom, in just a few moments. We're going to allow a few others to go ahead and log on before we get started. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today here at Oklahoma Central for our webinar on Steps to Financial Freedom. We are going to start the webinar in just a few minutes, waiting on a few others to step in on it since it will be starting at 12:30, and we're so happy and delighted to have you in joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us today at Oklahoma Central for our webinar on Steps to Financial Freedom. We're so happy that you decided to join us today. My name is Jana Harding, and I'm the Financial Development Officer here at Oklahoma Central Credit Union. And today I have Leah Bowles, our Director of Community Engagement. She will be manning our chat line today, so if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to go to that box, ask any questions that you may have, and us or one of our members of our team will get back with you within the next 24 hours. And also in about 2 weeks, this webinar will also be available on our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to review it for anything that you may have wanted to see again. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you find this webinar very useful, and we are very excited to share the information. So today, steps to financial freedom. Understanding our money personalities is very important on understanding steps to financial freedom to see exactly what kind of a spender are we and where do we fit. Are we a hoarder that we like to save money, budget, and prioritize? Or are we a spender, which I can say for me, I'm a spender, I like to spend. Are we a planner that's nitty gritty and takes one step at a time? Just someone that really plans out exactly how we spend our money. Or are we a dreamer? The dreamer hatches passionate schemes but has no idea how to make them come true. Or are we a merger that we want to pull all of the couple's money together? Or do we want to separate things, one at least some of his or her own money? Or would you classify yourself as a risk taker that loves the adventure of investing? Or are you someone that's a risk avoider and you want to make sure that everything's secure? You want to be very careful in before you invest in anything. And that's important to know exactly what kind of personality we have when it comes to our spending habits. We also want to see on our money personality. This is something that is important as well, that we want to list products and services that we may spend our money on. And also, depending on where you may bank at, a lot of financial institutions will offer apps on their online banking that it helps you be able to separate and see exactly how is your money being spent. Are we spending most of it at the grocery store? Are we spending it at the convenience station? Just exactly where it is those high ticketed items are and what it is that we frequent the most on it. Also, another thing that we can do with our money personality is list ways that you're a good spender. Give yourself that pat on the back that you're putting money back into your savings each month, you're contributing to your 401k, you've got money going into your emergency plan, things like that. We also want to list changes that we would like to make in our spending habits. We all have those habits of that we're like, I wish maybe I didn't hit Starbucks so many times. I wish I didn't hit the convenience store so many times running in. Different things like that are ways that we can list on how we would like to help save money for ourselves. Now what we want to look at is setting our financial goals. So within setting goals, we want to look at what type of goals we've got. So we want to do SMART goal, and a SMART goal is a specific goal, it's a measurable goal, it's an attainable goal, it's relevant, and then it's timely. So we want to set, if we're looking to get out of debt, for instance, how long could it take for us to get out of that? We want to make sure that we're giving ourselves enough time as well as with what our goal is, and is it something that's attainable? So let's say if we have a goal that we're reaching for that we know after setting it, we're going to need more time to obtain that, then that's where we want to change our time frame. We also want to look at relevant. How relevant is setting this goal to our life actually going to be? And we want to look at timely again to make sure we're giving ourselves enough time for it. Now, what are our goals that we want to look at? Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So we want to look at a short-term goal, which would be 1 to 24 months, and that could be to pay down debt or increase our savings. Also, we want to look at, is it going to be a midterm goal for us? That is something that would take 2 to 5 years for us to be able to obtain. Some might look at it as being, well, that's my dream vacation I want to be able to take. Or are we looking at a long-term goal, which would be 5 years or more? For some, that would be purchasing a home, saving for our down payment. Depending on where we are in life, it could be that we're looking at retirement in the next 5 to 7 years. It just depends on what your goal is for you to be able to determine how long it'll be able to take you to reach that goal. Now, again, if you have any questions as we're going through this, please don't hesitate to ask in that chat box and we'll be able to get the answer back to you. Also, if we have more than one person asking a question, we'll definitely be able to address that during the webinar as well. Now that we know our goals, let's talk about budgeting. So 4 rules of budgeting, and I like to compare our budgeting to a gym membership, that we're going to get out of it exactly what we put into it, and we don't want to worry about perfection. It's your budget, it's your business. It's not going to be perfect. It's finding what is the perfect tools for you to be able to stick within your budget and obtaining the goals that you want to obtain. We want to look at as well that the big stuff makes more of a difference than the small stuff. Also, we want to make sure that we plan on real life and not how we wish life would be. We don't want to plan on, oh, well, that bonus I know I'm getting at the end of the year, or that raise I may be getting at the end of the year or the first of next year. Different things like that. We want to make sure that when we're planning our budget, we're planning it realistically with what is actually going on and not with how we hope that things may be or that we may foresee things being. We want it to be with what reality is. And we also want to make sure when we're doing our budgeting that we're keeping it very simple. We want not to overwhelm ourselves. When we first start this with budgeting, it can get very overwhelming in the beginning. So we want to make sure we're keeping it very simple, and we hope with a few tips that we're giving you today with budgeting that that's something that can help that make that easier for you. So we want to look at our income first. We definitely want to make sure that we've got those holdings are correct that we have on file with our HR department. We want to do that because we don't want it to be that at the next year when we go to file taxes, we're having to pay a lot more into taxes because we didn't have our withholdings correctly. We want to be very conservative with non-guaranteed income. And with that, what we mean is overtime. For instance, if you're a company that you work for actually offers you overtime right now, you want to make sure that you're not putting that in your budget. Our overtime is an extra that we get to add into our paycheck. For instance, if you are guaranteed 32 hours a week, but you know you're going to work 40 hours a week, we want to plan our budget off of that 32 hours a week for us, not off of the 40 hours a week. We also want to look at bonuses. We don't want to spend our bonuses before we actually get our bonuses. We want to wait until we actually have that check in hand or we have that money in our checking account for our bonuses. That's just a very important thing. I hear a lot of people will talk about, well, when I get the bonus, these are the things I'm going to spend it on. We just want to make sure that we're accommodating if something should happen and we don't actually get to get that bonus, or if something should happen that the bonus is not the amount that we were thinking that it wanted to be. And I've seen that happen so many different times. Also, bonuses are not guaranteed. That's just something that if a company chooses to give to us. So we want to make sure that we're not spending that money or counting on it before we actually have it. I've heard lots of different stories, and even recently of companies that you're used to getting a bonus and something has happened and employees are no longer getting them for whatever the reason may be. We just want to make sure that we're not counting that yet. We also want to look at our fluctuating income. If that one week we work 40 hours a week, but another week we may work only 36 hours, and then another week we may only work 32 hours. We want to take whatever it is, those lowest hours, which be the 32 of it, that's what we're basing our income off of, and not always doing it with the different fluctuating hours that it may be. That way we have a guaranteed baseline set that we're able to meet our budget. We also want to look at commissions. We want to see, we don't want to count on those commissions until they actually come in, depending on what it could or could not be. I've even had jobs where I was salaried and commission based. So we just want to make sure that we're budgeting in for what we actually have and that our commissions can be extra money that we have coming in. We also need to look at seasonal work, especially right now with it being around the holidays. A lot of people do pick up extra shifts of trying to find a part-time job or seasonal help with stores having extended hours. So we definitely want to make sure that we've got that seasonal work, we've started it, and we're getting a paycheck on it before we start putting it into our budget. We just don't want to count on spending money that we don't have yet. For instance, I know someone that used to volunteer at the fair every year. And that was something that they counted on for their Christmas money. And one year when they went to go sign up, it was already all the positions were filled. So they weren't able to do it. So here they were several months before Christmas having to figure out how were they going to have that money for their Christmas shopping of what that was. So we just want to make sure that we're really careful on that and we're not over counting for what we don't have yet. Now, our recommended monthly expenses, these are things that we definitely recommend we take out of our budget because these are expenses that we all have each month. For instance, we all have our mortgage payment or our rent payment that's due each month. Food, we have to have food to be able to survive. That's something we go to the grocery store quite frequently for. We also want to look at our debt that we may be having come out, whether it be a loan or car payments, whatever it may be, that we are accounting for those things. And most importantly, our savings. We want to make sure that we're paying ourselves first when we look at our monthly expenses, whether it's that you're putting that little bit of money into your expense account if something should happen for an emergency account, or that it's you've got it going to a regular savings account. We want to make sure that we're paying ourselves first so that we have that. And I recently had someone ask me, well, what if I don't have the money to put back into my savings? We want to try really hard to be able to be paying ourselves first for that, because when we have an emergency happen that we aren't expecting to happen, we'll be able to use our savings account to pay for that emergency and not being so worried about how we're going to be making ends meet. And that's whether we're just putting back, if we get paid weekly, $25 a month, whether we get paid biweekly, $50 a month, or if it's putting back $100 a month. So at the end of the year, we have $1,200 in starting in our emergency savings account. So for our savings and our loans, what we want to be looking at is savings for our retirement. And this is something good. If the company you work for offers a 401k where they do matching funds, you definitely want to make sure that you're partaking in that, because that's free money laid out on the table, working towards your retirement of that. And that's something a lot of even young people don't think about. And it's never too early to start on with the savings for our 401k, especially if an employer is matching those funds for us. We want to make sure that we're taking advantage of that, that they see us, that our employer sees enough in us that they're willing to match that, and that you're able to take part in that. Also, something we want to look at is investments that we have going on. Do we partake in the stock market or not? And we want to look at to make sure that we're putting money back into our emergency savings fund if something should happen. Now, this is also where our goals are going to come into play as well too, for our short-term goal, mid-term goal, or our long-term goal. And we want to make sure that we're putting enough money back to be able to match for our goals for us. Also, if you're ever interested in any investing, we do have an investment officer here with us at Oklahoma Central that I'm sure Lincoln would be happy to set up an appointment and talk with you about those things that we offer from the credit union on his side of the investments. Now what we want to look at is our gifts and celebrations. We all have these that we celebrate. We have birthdays, whether it be with our friends or our family. We have weddings and wedding showers to go to, baby showers, holidays. As we all know, Christmas is right around the corner coming up. And we have anniversaries. And we also have those just because gifts that we like to get for people sometimes. Excuse me. So that's something that we definitely want to make sure that we're putting into our budget, is those little kinds of things that we have coming on, especially for the holidays, with the prices of how they are for things right now, to start saving up for those holidays and making sure that we've got that money saving, or that allotment that we've put back that we may be spending on each person, things like that. Now we also want to look at our recreation of how we do for things. And this is something too, that there's actually a website, and it is Tulsa Go, that you can look at and see the different things that are going on in our community that we can even look at and go to for free to be able to take, whether it's kids or our godchildren or nieces and nephews, or we just want to go on these things. So we want to make sure when we're doing our budgeting that we also are including our recreation for our leisure things, whether it be daily, non-vacation, whether it's that we like to buy books, or we're part of the Amazon book club, we like to buy magazines, or we like to do movie rentals, or if it's pay-per-view items that you like to get, or if it's sporting events that you like to go see, those different types of things. We want to look and make sure that we're including those in our budget to be able to have the money that we want to go see these things. Also, different hobbies that you may have. Hobbies can be expensive too, whether it be a crafting hobby, or you like to go to carnivals or museums, or we like downloading music, or video games is a big one. Just a number of different things that you have, whether it be that you enjoy going to the zoo, whether you enjoy the different amusement parks that are around. We want to make sure that we are including those items in our budget as well. And we also need to look at vacation, that we include our vacations, whether we're going to do a staycation, or we're going to do a day trip, or we're actually just going to do a weekend getaway. That those are things that we're including in our entertainment, that we're including as well in our budget. So that way, when we're even setting back for our savings, that you may have different types of savings for different leisurely recreation things that you like to do, you have that money there that you've been saving for, that you're able to do it, and that it's not a last minute thing of having to scurry for putting money together to be able to take a vacation. Again, if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask those in the chat box, and we'll be able to get back with you on those. And another thing is, as we're going through this with budgeting, we also have MSRs at all of our locations that are happy to sit down and help you go over your budget and look at different ways to be able to help you save money as well, that the credit union offers for our members. Now what we have to get here to is our charity and our pet care. And for those of us that have pets, we know how expensive they can be. Just this morning, I was telling my husband, I gave the dogs the last part of their heartworm medication, and it's time to redo their tick and flea medicine. And I knew right offhand, that's $250 next week that we've got that's coming up. So those are things we want to look at. We can't let our animals go without food. And as we all know, that food is expensive. And we look at different supplies, whether it may be toys or if we've got a puppy that we're house training, the different things like that. And also those unexpected veterinarian bills that we may have. And that's just part of coming along with being a fur baby owner that we have. And even though they are expensive, they're very, very well worth it. And it's just nice if we're able to have that money put back so it's not an unexpected expense when we have it going forward. I know a couple of years ago, one of my kids had decided they were getting a puppy. And one of the things I said to him was make sure you have at least $500 put back in your budget for that first vet bill. Just those different types of things that we have. We also, if we like to give to charities or religious contributions, we want to make sure that we're including those in our budget as well, so we're not thrown off when those things come up that we like to donate to, and we're able to still donate to those organizations. Or if we have a pet emergency that arises, we're able to take our pet to the veterinarian and not worry about what it may cost. Now we want to look at our banking. Our bank charges. If we order checks, we need to figure that in for our budgeting. Also service fees, depending on what it is we may or may not be doing with our financial institution. If we ever overdraw our account, we have those NSF fees. Also, depending on what kind of account you may have a minimum balance fee. These are just different things that we can go over our bank statement and look at to see on ways that we're able to save money. And if we use ATMs that charge us money for those are the things we want to look at with talking with our financial institutions. I know, for instance, at Oklahoma Central Credit Union, we're in the TransFund network. So if you go to a Quick Trip, your transactions are free. Those are the different kinds of things we want to make sure that we're partaking in and that we're making sure we're not being charged for. Free checking still does exist. Even with we're in Oklahoma Central, we also offer checking accounts with rewards. And we have a number of different accounts that may be able to fit your budget if you're looking at different types of ways to spend, looking to save for your banking needs on your checking account, because we don't want to be paying a financial institution to keep our money for us. Another thing that we can look at that we can do is increase our income. So some of the things we can do is if we're able to work overtime, we can ask our employer for overtime hours. If not, if your schedule relates to where you can do a part-time job, picking a job up on the weekends or in the evenings, that's a great thing to do too, to look to increase your income. Also, better pay, and by what we mean by this is looking at to see is, have you taken on more duties at your job? Have you taken on more responsibilities at your job? Things like that that you could ask for a raise for. Also, in this day and age, with what we have is selling things. We have Marketplace on Facebook is a great way to sell things that we can clean out our closets and see what we have. Maybe it's clothes that we're no longer wearing. Our kiddos have grown out of clothes. We're having a garage sale, just a number of different types of things like that that we can look at, helping the money that we've already spent on items to make us some money again, whether it be we put that money in a savings account or whether it be to buy new items. We can also look at decreased spending. What can we do? Can we reduce, substitute, postpone, or forego? That is something for me about 2 years ago when I really started working on my budget and working on savings that I started looking at was what could I cut back? And it really surprised me when I went over all the unnecessary spending things that I was spending money on. Instead of spending money on 5 different apps of watching things, Netflix, Hulu, Disney, all those things, we cut that down to 1. Another thing I looked at was my cable bill and found different alternative ways that I could watch still all the shows that I like, but without paying such a high cable bill. And we can look at seeing what is it when we're grocery shopping? Can we substitute for those off-name brand items? And one of the things to look at on, is this something I can postpone? Do I really need it? Or is this something that I can completely forego? So we just have to look at that and see, and we don't want to forget our goals as we're going along with looking at these items. Something else we want to look at too is our budget busters with our spending. I know this was a big one for me when I started saving and looking at things, and I had to really cut down with Amazon because I enjoyed having it delivered every day to my house. I would see something and, oh, I need it. So I started looking at my money choice assessments on, do I need it? Do I need it now? And what's going to happen if I don't have it? And you just have to know our weakness, especially when we're looking at and we're trying to save money and we're looking at different ways that we can cut to do it. And it really surprised me as I've started looking at things. And now that I look back from 2 years ago, the things that I cut out and what I'm able to use my money on now has made such a big difference. Now, this is where we want to stay motivated on why it is that we're saving and why we have a budget. We want to be visual, whether you're a vision board person or if you're saving for a new house, maybe be putting a picture of that house up on our refrigerator so you see it every day. Or if you're saving to buy a new boat, put a picture of your new boat up. Just like I said in the beginning, how it works like our gym membership with visualization. Those are the things that we want to remember on it. Also, it's very important to stay organized in this and to be realistic with ourselves and actually live in what our reality is, because our old ways won't open new doors. We want to monitor our progress, whether that's we set a calendar reminder every 30 days, every 60 days, or every 90 days to look and see, okay, how much am I saving here? Where am I at in my 401k now that I'm contributing to it every 3 months? Where am I at in my savings account now that I'm putting X amount of dollars back every 3 months? And one of the biggest things is we need to expect setbacks. It's going to happen. That's just part of life. Things that we aren't necessarily counting on to happen will actually happen so that we're able to set that money back, whether it be you turn on the hot water one morning and realize your hot water heaters went out. That's something we walked out into the garage last month and realized our hot water heater busted. So that was something that we weren't expecting. So you have to expect those setbacks to go back. And we want to reward ourselves along the way, whether it be that you reward yourself with going to a nice dinner, set something aside that you really want, an item that you're willing to forego right now while you're saving until you have extra money in saving to be able to get that item and it not put you in a pinch. So that's a way we can reward ourselves along the way with it. And what are we going to do now? This is something that we really want to look at with what can I do today? What can I do within 3 months? And what can I do within this year? Those are things you want to look at. You can write up, well, I can set for my budget today. This is how I want to set it. You can set your goal with, this is where I want to be within 3 months. And you can also set it with this year or next year. This is something I would like to be able to have accomplished with your budgeting and your goal setting. Also, draw up a milestone calendar. Like I said, it can be that 30, 60, 90, we go 120 days. Just to look at where you kind of pat yourself on the back with that you've made it this far and where you have with what's going on. And we want to remember that a budget is a springboard to our financial independence. And it's so nice to have financial independence. It's so nice that if you have to get 4 new tires, that it's not a big deal because we've got that money put back in savings and we're not in a pinch of stressing and trying to have to figure out how to get that money. And most importantly, we want to be patient with ourselves. Success does not happen overnight, but over time. Just like with that gym membership, whether we put on 20 pounds in the last year, we didn't put that on overnight. So those are the things that we want to look at, that it takes time to be able to start saving and get us on that plan for where we want to be at financially. We really appreciate you joining us here today at Oklahoma Central for our webinar. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're happy to answer. And we have so many staff in our branches that are happy to answer, help you get on track with your budget and get your savings on plan. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.